Welcome to Money Talks with Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. U.S. inflation tops forecasts, limiting chances for Fed rate cuts. No let-up with President Trump. He says the Fed should lower rates, going hand in hand with higher tariffs. What now for the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas? Survey says a 25 basis point rate cut is coming later today. But what are the chances of a pause? U.S. inflation has jumped higher than forecast to 3%, strengthening the case to pause rate cuts. Figures from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics show consumer price index has risen by 0.5% from December. Take a look at this chart here. This is where the concern is coming from, that rising trend there up to 3.0%. January's inflation report reinforces that message from the Federal Reserve that it is in no rush to lower interest rates. Now, some businesses had already raised prices in anticipation of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff orders. White House spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt says Trump is determined to cut rates to tame inflation.
As for tackling inflation and interest rates, the president has made his position on this very clear. He wants interest rates to be lower, he wants inflation to be lower, and he believes that the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking will result in lower inflation.
On Truth Social, Trump reiterates lower interest rates should go hand in hand with upcoming tariffs. But while economists see levies as an inflation risk, Trump is pushing ahead and imposing reciprocal tariffs on every country that charges duties on U.S. imports. Trump says he may sign the proclamation as early as Wednesday morning in the U.S.
I may do it today, and if I do it today, I could almost do it right now. And I may do it later on, or I may do it tomorrow morning, but we'll be signing reciprocal tariffs. The world has taken advantage of the United States for many years. They've charged us massive tariffs that we haven't charged them.
The Philippines may face risks from Trump's plan to impose new tariffs. Financial services group Nomura Global Markets says the country, along with other Asian economies, could be affected by higher reciprocal tariffs. Nomura's data show all Philippine exports to the U.S. could be subject to these higher tariffs, making up 2.6% of the country's gross domestic product. Ateneo de Manila economics professor Leonardo Lanzona warns these policies could disrupt global supply chains and raise prices. He also said higher tariffs could lead to increased production costs and inflation. With this, he urged the government to ease economic shocks through trade agreements or local investments. The Philippines may soon be removed from the global dirty money gray list. The Financial Action Task Force saw significant progress in the country's anti-money laundering efforts after an on-site visit last month. The watchdog says the final decision is expected on February 21st, the last day of its plenary. Bangko Sentral Governor and Anti-Money Laundering Council Chairman Eli Remolona says the country has a strong chance of being removed from the list. He also said this would make remittances cheaper and improve global transactions. The Philippines was placed on the gray list in 2021 because of weak financial safeguards. Since then, the government has tightened supervision and intensified its crackdown on money laundering. The Agriculture Department has temporarily banned animal product imports from Germany following an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the European country. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Laurel says the import ban will remain until Germany regains its FMD-free status. The department has also suspended the issuance of import clearances. Some products are exempt, including ultra-high temperature milk, heat-treated milk in sealed containers, and processed leather. Meanwhile, products already in transit are also allowed if they come from animals slaughtered before December 26, 2024. Day 3 of the campaign trail for some, while PDP Laban is set to launch their campaign today. Let's head over to San Juan with mobile journalist Merimon Reyes for the details. So what's going on there, Merimon?
Cathy, so far here in San Juan, the preparations are still ongoing kasi yung pinaka-program proper ng campaign kick-off ng PDP Laban will start around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But nakausap na natin yung campaign manager ng isa sa slates na ito, which is Attorney Jimmy Bondoc, at nasabi nga sa atin na some members or some part of the slate are already here and are staying outside the venue. So nabanggit sa atin, nandito na sila, ang campaign manager nila na si Senator Robin Padilla, and of course, Attorney Jimmy Bondoc. Pero we're still confirming if yung iba bang mga members of the slate ay nandirito na. Later on, we will be hearing the official and formal endorsement from former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte ng mga miyembro ng PDP Laban. And makakarinig din tayo ng remarks mula kay Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte as well as Senator Robin Padilla as PDP Laban's campaign manager. Mamaya makikita din natin yung mga miyembro ng slate na ito, which includes re-electionist hopeful Senator Bato de la Rosa, re-electionist hopeful Christopher Bongo, actor Philip Salvador, ang lawyer na si Raul Lambino, Sagip Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta, the lawyer and musician Jimmy Bondoc, lawyer Jesus JV Hinlo, and potentially will also be on the lookout kung magkakaroon dito ng representative itong si KOJC leader Apollo Kibuloy. Cathy.
Marami ang magpupunta dyan. Ano ang sitwasyon sa labas, Merimon? I mean, yung traffic, peak rush hour ngayon, ano? So ano ang maasahan?
Yes, Cathy. Yung pagpunta natin dito sa venue so far maluwag pa. Wala pa tayo nakikita na problema pagdating sa foot traffic or vehicular traffic. Pero they're expecting and anticipating na even if first come first serve basis yung upuan dito sa loob ng venue, posible na umabot ang mga supporters sa labas. And ready naman sila kasi kanina umaga pa lang around 7 a.m. nagkaroon ng security inspection inside and outside the venue to guarantee yung safety and security at yung smooth flow ng kanilang program proper. Cathy.
Okay, mukhang matagalan ang ating reporting dyan. Thank you so much. Merimon Reyes, our mobile journalist joining us from San Juan City. And coming up here on Money Talks, the Bangko Sentral set to announce interest rates later today. That's at 4 p.m. local time. And later on, we'll find out how much Filipinos are spending on Valentine's Day. Keep it here on One News. back to Money Talks. What's up? Well, here are the headlines making stories around the world. European countries demand a seat on the table in any future negotiations in the fate of Ukraine. 7 countries, including the UK, France, and Germany, underscored the need to provide Ukraine with security guarantees to ensure lasting peace. This comes as Trump spoke with the leaders of Russia and Ukraine, agreeing to start talks of ending the 3-year war. In the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns Hamas that they must free up Israeli hostages. This comes as he calls up military reservists to brace for a possible resurgence of the war in Gaza. The ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas appears to be fragile as fury mounts in the Arab world over Trump's plan to take over Gaza. The U.S. president warns a violation of that deal would, quote, let hell break out. Hamas says both countries' threats are unacceptable, arguing it suspended the handover of hostages because Israel violated the terms of the ceasefire. And in Japan, how did the merger talks between Nissan and Honda collapse? Sources tell Reuters Nissan insisted on receiving near equal treatment in the talks despite its weaker standing, while Honda abruptly proposed that Nissan turn into a subsidiary. Honda also pressured Nissan to make deeper cuts to its workforce. And with that, the $60 billion tie-up that would have created one of the world's largest automakers unraveled. Heads up, BPI app users. Starting today, the Bank of the Philippine Islands will no longer support e-wallet loading for GCash and Maya on its mobile app. Instead, users must transfer funds via InstaPay or PesoNet. BPI says this change follows the National Retail Payment System framework set by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas via BSP Circular 980 and Philippine Payments Management Incorporation Advisory Number 2024. And now, the most awaited decision of the week. Will the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas cut rates, hold steady, or surprise the market? The answer drops in at 4 p.m. Manila time. Earlier this month, analysts weighed in, and 19 out of 20 from a Business World poll expect a 25 basis point rate cut, a sentiment echoed by analysts from the Philippine Stars poll. But not everyone's on the same page. Since launching this show Monday, we've heard mixed predictions.
It's really more of how much more can the BSP provide support to the local economy, to the local market. I mean, yes, 25 basis points is there, but given all the scenarios that we are facing, the possibility of Trump imposing tariffs, which in turn could be inflationary to the U.S., which in turn could slow down the Federal Reserve with its own policy easing. How would that affect the BSP?
Street thinks that we'll probably see 50 to 75 basis points worth of cuts this year, right? And I think part of that obviously is what the BSP sees the inflation outlook is going to be for the year. So Street thinks that it's going to be stable, and that's what policymakers have been communicated as well.
2 reasons. Inflation didn't really come down in January, 2.9 in December, 2.9. So we're not, we're not quite out of the woods yet there, so we'll see. The other one, of course, is from last night's discussion of Secretary Powell at the Senate, that he's not in any rush to cut rates.
Okay, let's take a look at how the markets are trading at 44 past 9 in the morning after 4 straight days of decline. Let's take a look at the PSEI. Is it continuing its climb? Well, looks like it is at 6,044. Let's take a look at, in fact, it's gone down by about 0.1% at 6,038, a little bit iffy there ahead of the central bank decision. The local stock market was up Wednesday by nearly 1%, although trading remained tepid because of those lingering risks. PSE today opens on a lower note by just about 0.1 in the first 14 minutes of trading. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the peso and see how it's trading. Steady on Wednesday. The market awaited for the release of the January consumer inflation data in the U.S. It was higher than forecast and gives pretty much of an indication the Fed might not cut rates too soon. So it's looking like this right now with the dollar-peso exchange rate opening at 58.25, a tad weaker there after the close of 58.19 to the dollar. Our next guest manages an insurance portfolio worth at least 155 billion pesos, offering 3 peso-denominated funds. With us more is Angie Basis, President and CEO of AIA Investment Management and Trust Corporation. So good to see you, Angie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Cathy.
And on a very critical day, my goodness. So what's it going to be? I mean, I've had 3 guests on the show. You're the 4th. 2 of them said it's going to be a rate cut. That's 25 basis points. But the 3rd one said it's going to be a rate pause, only because of inflation concerns from the U.S. and how the Fed is signaling that it might be a concern and they're not in a rush. What's yours?
Well, our bet is they will not upset the signaling. The BSP will not upset the signaling that they've given the market, so they will cut. But, you know...
Cut by how much?
25.
Right, because 50 would be so disruptive, wouldn't it?
And 50 would be, I mean, they're doing it so that just to not to upset the market. Because if you've signaled the 25 basis point cut and all of a sudden you don't do it, that's going to really unravel the market. So 25, they're going to hold, but probably the messaging after is that, you know, they're going to wait and see what the Fed does. Of course, that's not the exact wording because they would want to be independent. But the reality is it's a follow the leader game. If the U.S. doesn't cut, you just can't keep cutting your own rates without affecting your...
Which leads us to the markets. Who's following who?
I
read a down market right now. I was thinking it's buy the rumor, sell the fact, but it's the other way around so far.
Yeah, well, always sell on news, right? It's like because the market always anticipates. So if they're talking about the rate cut, they'll announce it, but it's not going to be market moving because the market already expected it. What is dangerous is if, and that's not our bet, if they don't cut, then you actually see the market going down very fast.
Yeah, but you know, I spoke with Japheth Tantiangco of Phil Stocks, and he said that the danger really is in what happens after.
Yes.
Because how much further can the Bangko Sentral go in its rate cutting in order to signal that it wants growth to pick up, inflation's not a concern. Are you as concerned?
Well, if you, right now, because of the tariff issues, the potential impact on inflation, you know, people are feeling iffy about the ability of the central bank to cut. But if you actually look at the data, yes, the inflation picture is at risk. They've adjusted it upwards, but still well within. Risk-adjusted inflation is still well within the Bangko Sentral target of 2 to 4%. And the risks are really just coming from abroad. So they're responding to that, but we actually, if you look at the economy...
Yeah. You know, we're on tenterhooks here. I mean, Trump is going to report on the reciprocal tariffs, and that's what Nomura said would be much of a concern because we export 2.6% of our stuff to the U.S. That's going to get hit, and it could be inflationary.
It's definitely, it would be inflationary, but if you really look at it, 2.6% of your net exports as a percentage of your general economy can be easily set off by stronger consumer, a stronger consumer, which is what we expect in 2025. You know, it's been sluggish. It's 3/4 of the economy, consumer spending, 3/4 of the economy. It's been largely flat over the last 4 years, but because of inflation. But salary increases have actually caught up with inflation. It hasn't really, the inflation didn't really dampen didn't really reduce consumer demand. Now with the boost, with the wage adjustments catching up with inflation, we think it's going to be a stronger consumer in 2025.
Stronger Valentine's Day, perhaps, with a lot more spending on those flowers. I wanted to get to your investment trusts because you have 3.
Yes.
How is this all impacting how you are divvying up the money? because you've got three of them. You've got the adventurous fund down to the conservative fund. How are you now deploying that money to make sure your clients get the biggest buck out of their funds?
Okay, so we're taking a long-term view. We're looking at really what the fundamentals are, because in the short term, who knows where sentiment will bring prices, right? It's always a cycle of over-optimism and over-pessimism. And right now, we are diving into overly pessimistic territory. So the position is a bit defensive, but we're not out. We're not out of risky assets, precisely because if you really look at your valuations now, I mean, the prices of your assets vis-a-vis what it's worth, it's really trading at bargain levels already. Except that, I'm not saying that it stops here, right? What we're saying is, if sentiment actually brings it much lower, then consider them as fire sales. I was in a talk recently, and I was recalling, where prices were Asian financial crisis and every crisis that has happened after. And those opportunities were I would call them opportunities of a lifetime.
Okay.
What is my, what if I knew then what I know now moment? And my regret is I will never see those prices again.
My regret is I did not have a crystal ball here
Yeah.
to actually check on what we're saying, but I'm going to hold you to that and say that it's cautious optimism down the line.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Angie. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank
on
you.
air. Angie Passis of AIA joining us here of the Investment Trust Unit. And when we return, we talked about Valentine's Day a little bit there. We'll speak to the founder of a business that truly blooms during this special day. We'll be right back. We have this story just in earlier this hour, a changing of the guards at the Transportation Department. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin says Vince Dizon will be taking over the department after Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista resigned because of health reasons. Stay tuned to One News for more on this developing story. Meantime, tomorrow, that's going to be Thursday, is going to be filled with love in the air as we celebrate Valentine's Day. But we're celebrating it a day before for everybody in love or not in love. A recently released SWS survey says more Filipinos want to do chores for their loved ones. You got that right, chores. I wonder why that is. More than 60% prefer to express their love through acts of service. About half favor words of affirmation and quality time. Looks like the intangibles there is the most important, and few want to give gifts or touch physically. One reason for spending less during Valentine's is it's getting more expensive. That's exactly what Angie and I were talking about a few minutes ago. Data analysis reported in 2021, the average Filipino spent 1,421 pesos on gifts, with men shelling out the most money than women. Most Filipinos brought out their wallets to pay for food, on delivery service, dinner at a restaurant, or a gift card. With us now for more is Saul Moya, the founder of flowerstore.ph, the leading floral and gifting e-commerce company in the region. So good to see you, Saul. Thank you so much for joining us. And on this very auspicious day, I wore red, only because we're celebrating in advance.
Yeah.
Is that true? People aren't really spending so much or doing the intangibles, like do the chores for their loved ones, and it's mostly women spending?
Yeah, well, it's always clear that the male is like the one buying more flowers, etc. And that's why in our business, you know, on flowers and gifts, we clearly see that 70%, 80% of the people buying are men, like for their
Is that
wives.
what you notice? I mean, you've been here for 10 years and you've seen the scene. Do you think women are spending more than men? And are they doing that right now as you're seeing the online sales go through?
Yeah. I think like the data aligns with what you just showed, that the guys are spending like a lot more on the flowers, while, you know, I think that women spend more on other categories, you know, like also like experiences, like makeup, like fashion.
Interesting, because you don't just sell flowers. You've got cakes, you've got stuffed toys, you've got even pressed flowers. In fact, I mean, gifts. Really, it's a gifting company. How are those doing? And in particular, in the other regions that you're doing business in, it's not just the Philippines, but Vietnam and Thailand.
Yeah, so, you know, like we try to have not only flowers, but many different categories so every customer can find like the right product. And while flowers are still, you know, like the main product for Valentine's, every time more there is people, you know, going into personalized products, food, preserved flowers because they want to last them for years and use for decoration. So there is really like a mix. And then, you know, like between the different markets, clearly, like in the Philippines, is where Valentine's is more celebrated.
Yeah, so that means more spending, right? So more inflation, and that's not so good, but then good for business. Are you in for the next seeding of your funding? I mean, you've had 2 in the past. Are you going to have another anytime soon?
Yeah, we are still exploring options, probably, you know, like by the end of 2025, 2026, but definitely we are already planning to launch into another country within this year.
All right, I got 30 seconds to go. I wanted to ask for a gentleman who actually sells stuff that people buy in bulk. What's a day like for you on V-Day?
In V-Day, you know, like I usually don't go to sleep already like for the last 2 days. And we are just managing, you know, like we manage operations from 10 different spots only in the Philippines. So we are just making sure, you know, that we have enough delivery riders, that all of them are there, that the pace of everything is going well. So just, you know, like managing and controlling that everything is going according to plan.
Good. So, well, there's love in the air for business. That's doing very well. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Congratulations. All the best. So Moya there, flowerstore.ph. And that is it for Money Talks with Cathy Yang. Just catch us again tomorrow. There's a lot of action here happening just before V-Day, 9:30 a.m. on One News. We're also streamed live on YouTube and on our Facebook channels. If you haven't done so, like and follow my social media pages. Have a great day ahead, and do spend much.